Hey, what's up guys? This is Sam Lodi, and I'm back with another ways to play video. This one, just a quick reminder about this series. So this series is not me trying to tell you, the best way to play, or me trying to tell you that you should do that. It's just, stuff that I've find out, solve some of the issues, that were at the core of some of my experiences in role-playing games, since I started. And each of these videos tackle one of these issues, and here's like a principle. So I see these videos as clips, where I describe a procedure, some kind of a principle on how to utilize a system. So all of these videos, take for granted that you play raw. You don't change the rules, you don't add anything, you don't take away anything, you don't avoid anything. So all of these principles or procedure that I think are somehow, not perfectly, but somehow universal, that you can apply to a lot of role-playing games, like of any kind of style and genre. A lot of them, not all, obviously. Sometimes I do mention some exceptions here and there, but that's what it's all about. So this one here is will be quite obvious in that perspective. Is I will call it prep, but don't plot. So prep, no plot, or prep but don't plot. Call it the way you want to call it. I do make an important distinction between prepping for a game and actual plot. So some people, what they do is that they some GMs or some player, they like to plot. They like to write stories. So what they do is that when they prepare for a campaign, they would call it prep, or I'm gonna prep for my campaign or whatever. But what they do is they write encounters. They write all kind of agendas for all kind of people and players and all that, and they kind of like structure, and they kind of already know what the end is gonna be in advance, because when they prep for sessions, they actually write, like script. And so you're a player, and most likely you will end up in a situation where you are a protagonist in someone else's story, so your agency is kind of out of the window. All right, so this is really important for me. Now, when I first started to play, sometimes I felt like I was on a railroad, so the idea of being railroaded, or the issue of the quantum ogre, when you have illusion of choice, illusion of agency, GM fiat, and all that. So it's basically you play as a player, but no matter the decision you make, no matter the choices you bring to the table, no matter how you utilize your agency, you end up in someone else's story, and eventually your choices don't matter, your agency don't matter, the stuff that you're trying to do as a player end up being railroaded back to the script or the plot written by either a GM or someone else around the table, or I don't know, depending on the game, the system, and all that. Now, the best way to avoid that when you're a GM or when you are a player is to make a clear distinction, a clear conceptual distinction between prepping and plotting. So, for me, what I call prep is actually like reading the rules, studying the rules, studying the system, and organizing like a situation, a beginning situation, like what's gonna be the start, like the first scene, like the starting situation. I don't know how you call that. In Burning Wheel, they call it the situation. And I got this idea in Apocalypse World. Vincent Baker. Vincent Baker is clearly exposed it clearly in his game, in the first edition, Apocalypse World. I don't know about the second, but he expressed that if you're trying to script in advance, like talking about Apocalypse World, the way the design is, you will ruin the experience for everybody else, because the dices will kind of dictate stuff that might never gonna fit in what you scripted. So this is where I got this idea. This is where I started to play to find out. But one day, Runeslinger mentioned there is a distinction between play to find out and play to make up. And he's right about that. So what's this distinction, these distinctions means is that when you prep, but don't play, when you're prepping, you're actually organizing the session, like not organizing the story. So that's a different thing. Like when you study rules, you want to be ready. You have your rules, you know where they're gonna fall. You know that the first scene is about this situation, so the player, they might gonna do this or that. You can already see a little bit in advance where they're gonna go, but you don't know how the dice gonna fall. So you don't know where it's gonna go. You don't know what they're gonna try to do. If you want to create NPC, fully fleshed out NPC, well, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, because prepping and plotting can become the same thing if you're not aware. Let's say, for example, you create an NPC. When you create an agenda for him that is 3 pages. Like now you have like his backstory, you have his intentions, you have what he's trying to do and what he's gonna do. But you don't even know if he's still gonna be there after 5 minutes of play. So, but if you force it to be there, now you start to plot. Now you start to go beyond what the GM should be doing. Like if he's not a plotter, if he's not railroading and scripting and creating a story that he already know in advance how it's gonna end, right? So now, if your fun is to plot and write stories for the people you play with to embody the character of your own script, go ahead, do your thing. But here, this tool that I'm trying to share, this procedure, this principle, is to understand the distinction between prep and plot. I've played with guys that do prep, but I never felt on a railroad, because what they do is that they give a name to a place, they give a name to an event, a past event in the story. They create a fully fleshed NPC, who has a name, who has an intention, a couple of beliefs, but we don't know what he's gonna do. We don't have any idea furthermore, because we're waiting for the dices to fall. Now, the great aspect of this principle is that when you don't plot, you cannot railroad. It's a sabotage. That's the problem with plotting. When you plot, you will end up railroading, because you spend so much time and energy preparing a story and a plot that you will bring everything toward the conclusion of this plot, toward even if it's psychological, even if you don't even notice that you're doing that, even if it's unconscious, it's gonna go in that direction. It's gonna go in the direction of following that story. And this is where it can ruin the experience for the people who want to play to find out. Me personally, I'm one of those. So what I do is, when I play a game, I like the dices to dictate what's gonna go. So at the end of the session, I'm looking at my fellow player and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? That is crazy, that is cool. But this experience of looking back on a game, looking back on how the system shined to tell this beautiful story we are doing now, that is true collaboration. If I don't trust one of my fellow players, because I feel like I'm going in a direction because he scripted something and he plotted the whole idea, I have no way for me to know and to be sure that I had agency, and if it was not just a masquerade. This is important. This is what I just did right there. What I just said This is fundamental for a lot of gamers out there who like to play like that. If you want a true collaboration, you cannot plot alone. That's the whole thing. Okay, so just to make sure, I'm just gonna summarize. I'm just gonna do a quick synthesis here. It's like this principle, prep but don't plot, is the idea that you should make a distinction between the two. And prepping should not be about writing stories and writing plots and scenes and encounters and knowing in advance how it's gonna end and knowing in advance that you're gonna end up the fight right there, and because the fight was too heavy and you want to cut it right there with a cutscene, and everybody just fought for no reason because you just saved the day with some kind of stuff happening, and oh, I would just wanted to introduce a villain right there. It's like, man, it's not cool. We know it was prepping in advance. We know you wrote that script, and it's like I felt like this fight I've been doing right there was just a waste of time, a waste of energy, and all my role there had no meaning because we're gonna fast forward afterwards somehow, and all the HP is gonna come back, or all the injuries are gonna have no consequences whatsoever, and it's boring. It's just boring because you go against the system to tell the story you scripted. So it's really, I mean, it's not necessarily boring for some people, right? This is some people like to play that way. But what I'm trying to express here is that some people want to utilize the system to have a collaborative experience, and the best way to ensure you have that is not plotting. Think about it like a sabotage. You prep. Like, be ready, like full of confidence. You know the rule by heart. Study the goddamn book, study the rules, make yourself paper there, make yourself notes, write notes and names and places and all that, but no intention, no storyline, no script. So whatever happens, you're ready, you prepped. But there's no story before the dice are rolling and the player make decisions by, through these interactions around the table. All right, so thank you for watching. I hope it makes sense for you guys. This is one of the best. The only fallback to this principle is you need to be open to improv, though. This is the thing. Some people, they are insecure, anxious, they have game anxiety, pre-game anxiety, and so they wanna have a story so they feel comfortable. And this is a big mistake because it feels forced, and you will have somehow to fall back on fiat because it's not gonna end up the way you want, and then you're gonna be scared because you look at your watch, you have 2 more hours of supposedly entertaining people, right? And it creates this culture of play where everybody relies on the GM's plot or prep for the fun of the night, because nobody knows what's gonna happen, and they kind of look back on you and wait for you to describe and make a cutscene there and all that. I mean, this is like the worst. If you fall into that situation and you're drained of your energy and you don't understand why you're so anxious before play, this principle is for you. Because this principle is I mean, you go to the table, nobody knows. It's a fact that nobody knows. So the only tool you have to create a story with your fellow players as a GM or as a player, when nobody knows for sure what's gonna happen, is the dice. The dice is the resolution system, is gonna tell you what it is, and depending on the game you have, it's gonna shape a storytelling experience, and it's gonna shape a certain type of narrative interactions around the table. And at the end of the 2-3 hours of doing that, you will end up with a story. And it's by looking back on it that you have the satisfaction, right? Not by writing a script 2 hours in advance and just throwing the whole thing at the people at the table and being satisfied because it actually tells the story you want it to tell, and take away the agency, right? And take away the collaborative aspect of the hobby. All right, thank you for watching.